Okay, we've had a little rainstorm today. It's Thursday morning, the 22nd, and this is like an after. I'm going to show you before pictures, before I did all the work, the year and a half of work and the $7,000 I spent to make my lot drain. But this is acting right now nowhere not like it did before I did the regrading. Before I did the regrading, you'll see on other videos that I had a puddle. On a storm like this, I would have had a puddle about 2 feet wide in front of my patio because everything from the patio before I regraded it went uphill. I'll show you on my other house. But this right here, you're looking at coming off lot 316, and I'm trying to show you where the water pools. This is lot 315. This finished floor elevation on lot 315 is correct. So you don't see any water pooled along here. But I'm standing on lot 316, and you don't see any standing water. You don't see any small puddles, nothing. Why? Because that lot, or that finished floor elevation right there, is 3 inches higher than the finished floor elevation I'm standing on. Now, in the past, before I regraded, by this time I would have a lake right here. Where you see this little bit of wet area right there, there's a drain there. And that's a collection area. All the water that would form a lake, and it would form a lake back to those cement pillars. I'd have a lake going back there, and right across where you see that cement and the bush, right across there, it was 4 to 5 inches higher than the patio I was standing on. So the water couldn't get off the patio. All right, I would have a pool, like I said, you'll see on other videos. But right now you look and you're going to see a little wet area there. When it's really raining hard, it's kind of backing off. But if it rains again a little harder, when it rains hard, I get a puddle right here, right off of that cement. I get a puddle here because that's where the drain is. But where that cement thing is, right out in front of here, let's see if I can pick it up. There's a wet area. That wet area becomes like a little lake. Why? And the reason it does is because, now I'll go over to lot 315. I'm looking down at where we were. That patio is 3 inches lower than this patio. On the master building plans, which it says on the plans, we cannot change this finished floor elevation. It's forbidden. You don't change it. All right, there's no interpretation on the rule. Well, this patio is 3 inches lower than the one I'm standing on, the one you're looking at. That's why I have such a difficult time getting the water away from here. And when you think, here's another little puddle right there that formed. I don't have the extra 3 inches in front of that house. That house sits 3 inches low, so I've lost grading. What I had to do for the first about 10 or 12 feet coming off that patio, I've got 2 layers of 6mm plastic covered with layers of tar paper before I put the rock down, just to keep the water from going under the pad. Prior to my regrading, all that water, when it formed a lake in front of the house, and especially over here on the side, I would get a giant lake. If this was 2 years ago, we'd be looking at a lake that would go back to that air conditioning unit. Because you're looking at 75 feet right there of roof line that just pours water into here. You're also looking at everything from here on out to the golf course is uphill. Now, years ago, I'd always have a lake here. I'd have a lake here and my whole patio. my patio, this patio, you can see where, right here where the cement got rotted. It got rotted from the ground always being wet here. And what would happen is all this water that was trapped up against the pad along this whole line would seep into the ground. What we call retention. This was a man-made, man-engineered retention basin. I know that because Woody Scout and the engineer told me it was a retention basin. Not directly, but I asked him, I said, what is this lake here? How come I'm getting a lake? Every time it rains, I'm getting a lake. It's not draining onto the golf course. It's not draining off my yard. What do I do? Woody Scout says, you got 36 hours. It's the 36-hour rule. If that lake is still there in 36 hours, then you can come and talk to us. You then have the authority to come and talk to us. Well, I'm kind of a bookworm, so I went on to the drainage manual for Buckeye, and the only thing that I could see that had anything to do with a 36-hour rule was a retention basin. A retention basin. That's the only thing that 36 hours applied to. Then I read a little further on. It's in the water storage. I believe it's chapter 8 in the Buckeye Drainage Manual, but it's water storage. It's all, anything to do with drain water runoff is in the water storage. Do you detain it? Do you retain it? When you retain it, water goes to die. Detention is where it goes into a holding place and then it's allowed to run out at a measured pace. This right here, what you're looking at, used to be a retention basin. Just past that for sale sign, they had a berm that was 5 inches higher than my patio. Plus they had my neighbor's lot graded away from the ditch and away from the golf course, right to, I refer to it as ground zero. If you hear me in the future talking about ground zero, that's ground zero. That's the last place the puddle ends and it's the first place it starts between these two houses. But all the water used to come, and ground zero was the collection. And now, if you can imagine having a lake, every time we get a little cloud burst where we get an inch or an inch and a half of water in, say, an hour or two, we'd have a lake going back to that air conditioning unit, all the way out to that tree, that little tree right there. The patio would almost be underwater. Another thing about that is that water didn't go away. It'd take a month to go away. You get up early in the morning and you come outside. In the evening, when you go to bed, all this top rock is dry. It looks dry desert. Come out at 5 in the morning and it's all soaking wet. That's where all the water in the ground has sit for so long and it's not drying out. You got to understand, we only get about an hour or two of sun on this strip a day. It comes up in the east that way, it sets in the west that way, we don't get a lot of drying here. So that means that not only is this pad 3 inches lower than code, which affects the sewer pipe, but basically you've sabotaged the sewer lines. They're out of code, all right? They've been sabotaged. If you can see the difference here, you see how high my neighbor's yard is to the left of White and how low mine is. Now we're going to go out and show you how I moved that puddle. That puddle that I described back there, and I'll show it to you on other videos, is now, that puddle is right here. I've gotten everything to drain this way. And you can see the difference between my neighbor's lot and mine. My neighbor's lot is almost a foot higher or more than mine. And all that water that used to be up there between my house now drains down here and stops. And this property line you're looking at, that plant right there, if you were to go get a surveyor, come out and survey the topographical elevation of that line where that plant is, that surveyor with the master grading document will probably tell you that plant is 1 foot to 1.5 feet higher than what it's supposed to be. The whole line is supposed to be lower. And I can't lower it because what good would it do? We got a golf course here, this whole spread of land from there to there to there was put there to protect that tee box. That's all there is to it. Now this water is going to sit here and I can't get it off my property. When the inspector inspects the house, he says on his inspection report, the water has to drain away from the house, and it was designed topographically by the engineer in Scottsdale that all this water isn't supposed to stop here. It's supposed to continue to drain onto the golf course. Does anybody get that? This used to be a lake. They put a big tree right there, and that tree used to grow into my yard. I made a bitch about it one night, and the reason that tree was planted there was to hide the lake. We had to hide the retention basin we built over there, so we'll put a big tree so that whenever there's a lake there and somebody sees from the tee and stuff, they're not going to be able to see the lake because that tree is there. That was the only purpose for the tree. Now I want to show you what you should be really proud of as a golf course management team. This is the drainage easement. Before they dug it out, it was the highest piece of ground in the corner. It was higher than both houses. The drainage easement was higher than both houses. Then they dug it out, and for about a week they had it compliant until they've had a rainstorm. We had a rainstorm, they had erosion like this. Now, this is what I want to make about the golf course management, and you're so acutely aware of everything I do in my yard, and you're always aware of the image of the place. How about this for an image? How about that for an image? Huh? Charlie Waters, that was cut probably a month ago, 3 weeks or a month ago in a storm. We had a little flash storm. That all got eroded there. Charlie Waters has probably played 10 or more rounds of golf and seen this whenever he played. Your pro shop manager, Andy, and his sidekick Carlos, who are both in charge of ground maintenance, have played several rounds of golf. I see them go by a couple times a week, and they've seen this. And they're doing all this work. The golf course is shut down now, and I see these guys working late into the night, working as hard as they can to get the golf course ready for the season opener. And then I turn and look at this. This is a public hazard. It's a fall hazard. Whether you want to admit it or not, or you're disgusted with the idea or whatever, or you didn't like it and nobody likes it, people are now using this as an access easement. Okay? It's being used as an access easement. Plain and simple. You got golf carts going down through it and people are walking on it. Now that you have that knowledge, you're leaving this like that. Can you imagine somebody coming down here at night, coming up from the other way, doesn't know that this crack is here and steps into it? You're a business. You're a golf concession. This is on your property. This tells me what kind of a manager and what kind of a management team we got running this place. All they care about is their golf course, that it's beautiful, it's everything, manicured. Do they care about public safety? Where's your public safety? You got any consciousness about that? Any ethical responsibility to fix this? You've got people walking here using this as an access easement on a daily basis. And I'm tickled, thrilled over it. Okay, I hope it continues.